It's with great pleasure that I welcome back Dr. Sean Patel, who's the CEO and founder of Prep Expert, the title sponsor of the College Admissions Process podcast. Sean, you have a special message for the listeners?
Hey, John, I just wanted to mention for all the parents and students who are listening to this great podcast, we have a really special offer only for listeners of the College Admissions Process podcast for Prep Expert. So, if your student is going to be taking an online SAT, ACT, PSAT course anytime soon, or is looking for one-on-one tutoring with top 1% tutors, head over to prepexpert.com. We offer live online courses for every college admissions exam. On top of that, we have the best score guarantees, best curriculum, and best instructors in the test prep industry. And just for listeners of the College Admissions Process podcast, you can get 20% off any online SAT or PSAT or ACT course, as well as one-on-one tutoring. So you can get 20% off. Just make sure you use the promo code College Talk. That's one word, College Talk, and you'll get 20% off just for listeners of the College Admissions Process podcast. And I hope you guys can use that to your advantage, save a bunch of money at prepexpert.com.
Thank you so much, Sean. And to everyone out there, once again, that promo code is College Talk. That's one word, College Talk. Thank you all, and best wishes. Welcome to The Cap, where we are here to speak with college reps and other professionals in the field of college admissions to help answer all your questions and guide you through every step of the process. So if you're serious about college admissions, you've come to the right place. Are you ready? Let's talk about it. And now, here's your host, Dr. John Durante. Welcome to The Cap, the College Admissions Process podcast. I am your host, John Durante, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome today Michael Berthel, who's the Vice President for Student Affairs and Admissions at Long Island University, also known as LIU. Michael, thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
Thanks, John. No, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day out. It's a holiday weekend, and it's nice to take a break from the pool to join you for this. So.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you, Michael. And so for families who may know LIU by name, but may not fully understand the university today, how would you describe the LIU experience and what makes it distinctive for students looking for the right college environment?
Yeah, no, I appreciate this question, and it's something we get a lot. There's been a lot of transformation at LIU over particularly the last 10 years. We're celebrating our centennial this year, so we're a relatively old institution, but a lot has changed over the last few years. And just to, quickly, back up a little bit, LIU has two main residential campuses, one in sort of the heart of Brooklyn, a block from the Barclay Center and the Brooklyn Bridge, and then one in Nassau County on the Gold Coast of Long Island. So, as far as that distinctive experience, we feel like, we sort of offer everything for students, right? When you think of a student and their college search process, they're often thinking, do I want to be in, New York City and then that sort of urban environment, or do I want to be in a more traditional suburban campus? And LIU has both of those, right? So, and then we have 150 majors. So we have so much to offer students that, regardless of what they're looking for in that college search process, they can find it at LIU. But I often say when I talk with students and families that there's never been a more exciting time to be at LIU. And I truly believe that. I've been at the university now for about 13 years. So I've had a sort of a front row seat at seeing a lot of that transformation, whether it's new academic programs in health sciences, our new College of Veterinary Medicine, which is one of 32 in the country, our elevation to Division I sports, our recognition in the top 7% of research institutions in the world. I mean, so many exciting things. We're building new buildings. I mean, so much is happening. So when students and families come to one of our campuses, they're seeing a university that is truly transforming and changing, which, for folks in Long Island and New York City, parents, they know a lot about the university, but sometimes, they know maybe LIU from, 15, 20, 30 years ago. But so many things that have really modernized the university, while at the same time, if you've ever been to our campuses, you could see that there's so much history there and so much beauty. Our campuses on both sides, whether it's, the 400 acres almost at Post or the 11 acres at Brooklyn. I mean, they're truly, I believe, some of the most beautiful college campuses in the country. So a lot of things that really make it the right choice for students, and that's what we hear when they come. That the campus sold them, the breadth of the university, and the offerings, as well as that personalized approach that we take a lot of pride in at LIU.
Well, I could attest to the fact that there's definitely been a tremendous amount of growth over the last few years at LIU. As a high school principal, I could talk about the amazing dual enrollment offerings that you offer through the wonderful LIU campus on Long Island,
Yeah.
and also your D1 sports. You have two beautiful campuses, and so much is happening, so much growth at LIU. And when people see that, it's clear that the future is bright. Now, families often think about college admissions, Michael, as a simple process of getting accepted. From your perspective in both admissions and student affairs, what should students and their families consider beyond the acceptance letter when choosing a college?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question, and it's funny. I mean, over the last few years, particularly universities have sort of moved to this model where admissions and student affairs are sort of intertwined, and often there's a vice president that's overseeing both, and that wasn't always the case. And so I get asked this a lot, and the reality is there's not much difference between those two areas. I mean, ultimately, from the admissions standpoint, you want to bring students in that are going to be successful, but ultimately that are going to take advantage of the university, all the experiences and opportunities. So for me to sort of be on both sides of that coin, it really allows me to work with students and families and our team, quite frankly, to make sure that they're ultimately making the right choice and then setting themselves up for being successful at LIU. But really, it's about finding fit. I know that sounds kind of cliche, but it's about being happy. And there's so many universities that offer great opportunities for students, but really every student is different. They're looking for something different at a university, and they'll find something different. So, I think for students that are, the application process obviously focuses on your academic qualities and your achievements and all that. But ultimately, it is a feeling when you come on campus, right? And it's you want to feel like you belong. You're spending 4 years. You're spending a good amount of money. You want to feel like you're at home. I mean, it's 4 formative years that I think if you ask most people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, they look back and they're still thinking of those 4 years at the university. So they're 4 important years. So that's an important part. I also think that, and as we talk to families, they're thinking more and more about it, which is a good thing. But career preparation, ultimately, how are you going to we talk a lot with students that our goal day before graduation is you have your job offer in hand. So that means day one, you're starting with your resume in your freshman year, and you're getting internships and on campus job opportunities in your sophomore year. So, making sure that wherever you go, that you're going to be best prepared and looking at those career outcomes and what the trajectory and the plan is for you is really important. And then last, I'd say just the personalized experience. If students are not seeing that as part of their admissions process, if they're not seeing a university that truly is looking at them from a personalized lens, then you're probably not going to be getting it on the actual student side. So making sure you feel like you're connecting with deans and faculty and staff and upperclassmen peers, all of that's really important. It's something I talk about a lot when I'm at open houses and accepted students days. That as a parent or family member, you typically expect to hear from and see the admissions counselor and the admissions dean. But for us, it's about getting faculty and deans and the people who are going to ultimately, decide the experience for students during their 4 years in front of them during the admissions cycle. So that's really important too.
Well, such a great overview. And I love how you talked about the pathways, because so many people think they get accepted to college and that's it. But really, students and families, that's only the beginning. So, in terms of you talking about having a resume in hand and knowing what you're going to do after your 4 years of college, I think is really important and something that I know LIU does particularly well. Now, Michael, when your admissions team reviews applications, what helps a student stand out beyond the grades and test scores, and how do you identify students who will contribute beautifully, if you will, to your awesome campus community?
Yeah, I mean, we look for so many things. I mean, obviously, everyone, you look at the GPA, the test scores that they took them, and, all those sort of things of students. But there's so many other factors, and every student, like I said before, is different, right? So, are we able to ascertain, are they caring contributors to society, whatever that may be for them, right? Do they are Because ultimately, if they did that during high school, if they did it in other parts of their life, they're also going to contribute to the campus community, right? So we look for opportunities to say, have they been part of leadership role? Were they captain of their baseball team? Were they in community service? All those sort of things. But truly, every student is different. So, whether yes, you can have been a captain of your sports team, you can have been president of student body, but, as I go into a number of schools, and talk to students about opportunities and all of that, I think you hear from students, and it's what happens when, times are tough in their family and things are hard financially, but they got a part-time job, and they are helping to contribute to making, their household better and their family, overcome an obstacle. Like that perseverance says a lot about a student too. So, it's easy to look at an application and say, okay, what's the chances of a student being successful in college and all of that. But also looking at the story, I think is really important. Sometimes you get that through an essay, sometimes you get it through seeing a recommendation letter. Ultimately, though, I feel like as many students as I could talk to and our teams can talk to, just to hear it, because understanding a student and what they've gone through, 4 years of high school is a long time, but a lot can change during college. So if you're looking at how they may handle the challenges and the transition of high school to college, look no further than what they've already done in life and how they've navigated some of that. So that's sometimes harder to pull out. So I get the sort of natural pull to want to look at the GPA bands and the test scores only. But the reality is once they enroll at the university, they're no longer looked at through what their GPA was and all that. You're looking at how do you handle, and how do you demonstrate resilience? How do you overcome obstacles? A test that may be a little harder than you thought, or a class, or not being able to make friends the way all those sort of things are the bumps in the road that we help them navigate, but also making sure we have students that have the experience before college that will help them be successful. That's really important, and our admissions team is sort of front line for that.
Well, I appreciate that. And I love how you talked about the fact that the GPA really doesn't become that much more important once you are admitted, but the type of contributor that you're going to be, what you're going to do in the overall college campus community is really important. The type of classmate you're going to be, the type of roommate that you're going to be, the type of, again, contributor to the overall community. So we appreciate that. And Michael, how does LIU evaluate a student's academic journey, including course selection, rigor, and growth over time, when understanding the context of an applicant's high school experience?
Yeah, so I think first is understanding that everyone is different. I just alluded a little bit to that, right? That you can't apply a one size fits all when looking at this. I mean, depending on students' opportunities in their particular school, some schools offer different things and offer more programs or less programs. Students have had different personal journeys and all of that. So understanding that every student is different is sort of, part one. But then looking at it holistically. I mean, you just mentioned before, and I appreciate it. We have a robust high school scholars program. So, we have thousands of students across Long Island that are taking our graduate courses in high school. And so understanding, what students have done academically and have they challenged themselves. Sometimes that can mean that, students have maybe not that A, but they have the A minus or the B plus, but they took a more challenging course to challenge themselves, right? And that tells a story. But ultimately, what we try to do, and I'll talk a little bit, I'm sure, in a question or two about our success coaches. But what we look to do is say, what has a student done? What are their passions, interests? What have they been good at? How did they start freshman year of high school to senior year? Because that growth is really important. And, sometimes it is more important how you end than how you started. And then we'll take that and then we'll make a 4-year success plan that really harnesses that. So, not uncommon for a student to say, I'm want to take business courses and I want to be a business major, but we'll look back and say, but you also did a lot of theater. So that looks like a passion of yours too. So can we work that into your extracurricular, or do you want to do a minor in something, or double major in something rather? So things like that, looking at a student's academic and their co-curricular achievements in high school, and then charting out the path for their 4 years based on that is something our success coaches will do with every student individually to make sure we're harnessing and we're building upon high school, not just hitting the reset button for them in college.
Well, I appreciate you talking about the success coaches because it's important for students to understand that, again, it's not just about being admitted to college, but also asking what does the college do to ensure that the transition from high school to the university is seamless and what are the supports that are available. And so, again, we appreciate you mentioning that. Now, Michael, one of the themes we hear repeatedly from admissions leaders is the importance of authenticity. What advice would you give students about making sure their application truly reflects who they are?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think, I think it's about being true to your story and not trying to either um, adjust it or make it to what you think everyone else will make it, right? I mean, there's a lot of competition, and I don't mean competition among universities, but competition among students, to be at a certain university or type of university, or shape their essay a certain way. I mean, I think students have to really be like that. Authenticity starts with yourself, right? And being honest with yourself about what has been the most important parts of your journey, what has helped shape you to be who you are, what are you good at, what do you like to do, what are you not good at, what do you not like to do. I think all those sort of things are really important. But also I'd say too that the authenticity also starts with students and their families having some conversations too. I mean, oftentimes, we'll see at whether it's an admissions event or even during the first registration for classes, where you see a little bit of misalignment between a student and a parent and their parent, and they have that conversation about, what do you want to do? And student will say, no, I have no problem. And it's on both sides, right? So a student will say, I have no problem waking up at 7 a.m. And mom will look at them and say, I'm not going to be there. You're not going to wake up at 7 a.m., right? Or a student maybe tailoring their major from what they think their parent wants to do. So that authenticity starts with honest conversations with the student themselves, but also their family, those who know them well, and say, what do I want out of this experience? How do I want to create myself in this next chapter? And ultimately, what am I good at and what do I want to do? And I think that the admissions application should be really the first step for ultimately what they want their college journey to be, right? So it's a little bit about that. I mean, it's not always easy to get this across in a, fill in the blank sort of application and maybe a few supporting documents and all of that. So where they can have personal conversations with faculty, deans, others to talk a little about what they want out of their college journey and experience, I think that's really important too.
Hey, podcast friends, if you've been enjoying the College Admissions Process podcast, I'm excited to share my new book, Straight from the Admissions Office, Insider Strategies for College Applications. It's packed with insights and tips from over 250 podcast episodes with admissions professionals designed to make the college process less overwhelming. Whether you're a student, parent, or college counselor, it's a valuable resource for navigating the admissions process. By grabbing a copy, you're also helping to support the podcast. The links are in the show notes. Thank you, and best wishes to all with the college admissions process. Well, we appreciate that. And you've touched on so many different things because you do have a unique perspective, of course, because you oversee student affairs as well as admissions. But once students enroll at LIU, what other experiences, supports, and opportunities are there to help them grow and succeed? And again, you've touched on so many.
Yeah, no, I talked about a little bit that dual role, and it sort of, for me, creates a responsibility that when I'm working with students on the admissions, process and all of that, that ultimately we're providing the experience that we're telling students during the admissions process. So I always enjoy, I think that's one of the great benefits of having this role sort of do both of those areas. But, I think go back to the success coach model for a quick second. So we have done something, I think relatively rare, which is we've sort of shaped and shifted the way that the university is structured to really support students. So, most parents coming in or upperclassmen students that have been to other institutions, they go to a financial aid counselor, they go to an academic advisor, they go to a career counselor, they may have a student life, advisor. So what we have done is created a success coach, which is the student's point of contact for virtually everything. I mean, there's a lot of people at the university who do things, but the success coach is the advocate for the student. They're all have their bachelor's, most have their master's degrees. They work with students in a smaller capacity. Maybe they have 100 students or so that they're working with in a specific major. But the student has the success coach's cell phone number. The success coach will be at their game, or if they're in a play, they'll be there to support them. They're at events. So it's a fully integrated program that provides students support across all areas. So the student doesn't have to think about, how do I navigate this complex university? Instead, they know they can go, see Michael or John, and that person will, help me navigate a challenge or take advantage of something. And, we say all the time that we feel very passionate and positive about all the opportunities that we offer students, whether it's student organizations and clubs, it's internships, our student-run businesses where students are, CEO and chief marketing officer and CFOs of businesses, internship opportunities, all of that. But it's only as good as your opportunity to take advantage of it. So the success coach, knowing the student, knowing their story, can then say, hey, I know you're interested in doing this. I just saw an opportunity. Or we have an alumni coming to speak on campus. You should come to this. Maybe I can get you to meet them afterwards. All of that takes a relatively large university and a lot of opportunities, but makes it personal for students and also increases the opportunity that they'll get engaged and take advantage of it, which I think if you talk to most student affairs professionals or university leaders or deans or advisors across the university, they'll often say, we have so many great things, but people won't come. And for us, we've said, okay, well then what can we do about it? And we have now created a professional role that works with students one-on-one to make sure that they're taking advantage of everything.
Well, we appreciate that. And you talked about challenges at the beginning of the answer. And of course, the cost of college is a major challenge for many families out there. How should students think about the value of a college education, and what conversations should families have when evaluating their investment?
Yeah, I mean, certainly this is coming up more and more, as the cost of education is talked about in the news and political platforms and all of that, and it may not be a popular thing for a higher education professional to say, but the reality is that the criticism is well deserved in some ways. I mean, you hear more and more about universities that are eclipsing that $100,000 a year that price tag, and that's not sustainable and not helpful for students and their families, right? So I think one of the things at LIU is that we have I believe we've been ahead of the curve on this. We realized about 13 years ago now that this was, if you looked at the previous 10, 15 years, the price just kept doubling, right? And increasing. So we realized then that we had to do something about it. So one of the things that we have done is we've capped tuition increases every year at 2%. So we said 13 years ago, we'll never go over the 2% increase a year. And the reality is we recognize that's still an increase, right? But if you look at what it's done over time and you look at some of our local peers and competitors or even national and regional, we used to be at the same cost or even more than some of those institutions. And now if you do a comparison, because of those 2% increase, when others are doing 4, 6, 8% a year, we are now one of the more affordable in the area. I think that's not by accident, right? So that's a very intentional. And when you think about all the things I talked about probably during the first question, new academic programs, new majors offering Division I, multi-million dollar renovations and new buildings that have been invested in, we're doing that while not increasing costs because we know we have to be responsible stewards of students' funds, and we do that through whether it's grant funds, donations, and alumni and donors and all of those sort of things, because we refuse to, quite frankly, do what others are doing, which is just continue to increase. So that's a really important part of our commitment. That's also we also offer obviously $100 million a year in scholarships. Or all of our students coming in as part of the freshman class are receiving some level of merit and scholarship aid. So that's a really important part. And I think when you think about the last few years at LIU, we have had our freshman class over the last couple of years has increased by 30%, and that's not something you hear a lot, right? At our residence hall enrollment has continued to increase, and those are things that I attribute to a lot of the excitement that's happening and the recognition the university has gotten. But I think it's because we're being good stewards of parents and families' money, and they see that, and they see the end of the day, the financial aid package that they get is competitive, if not much more competitive than other institutions. But ultimately, when you ask the value, it's the cost, which I just addressed. But it's also making sure it's a really positive experience because that's part of it too. You want to be able to make sure, regardless what you spend, it's great to spend less at one institution than another, but it still has to be the right fit and the right university. So, all the other things I just talked about, personalized experience, a vibrant campus life, academic programs and majors that are going to get you jobs after college. That's the balance of the two.
Well, I think you've done a great job giving an overview of all the wonderful things that LIU has been doing for the last few years. And I'm
Appreciate that.
here on Long Island, so I see it, I hear about it. I know a lot of students that are there and who have graduated and have had nothing but great experiences. And I am not surprised at all that your enrollment continues to grow year after year, as you guys have done an amazing job, frankly, making the university be known not only locally, but beyond. Now, Michael, having worked in higher education through many changes, what are some of the biggest misconceptions families still have about the college admissions process today?
So as far as misconceptions, I think it goes back to a little bit of that competitiveness that I talked about, um, with students and that it's all about getting into the most elite institution because maybe my friends are, or all those sort of things. A high number of institutions in our area, but across the country, offer great opportunities for students. And it goes back to, making sure you're visiting, making sure it is that fit, and not getting into necessarily what is the person next to me, looking for in a college, and can I also be at a university like that? I think that's part of that misconception is that it's all about that. And I think that's the unfortunate part because so many universities offer a lot of great opportunities for students, and it's up to the student and the family to determine which one's best for them. The other part is that I think it can certainly be a more personalized experience than people give it credit for. And I think oftentimes it's, that application starts and maybe it's Common App and I apply to 20 different places and it's just a click of a button. But really, it's by design, and if it's to be effective, it needs to be a personalized experience. It needs to be visiting the campus, making sure I go on the website, I learn everything I can about, would this be a good fit? If it's not going to be a good fit, I know the sort of the going feeling now is just to click the button and keep it on the list. If the school's not going to be the right fit for a student, I'd say don't apply. I mean, it's you've got to feel it, you've got to want it, you've got to know it aligns with your values and what you're looking for. And if that means applying to 7 schools instead of 15 schools and all of those, then I think that's okay. But it should be a personalized experience, both for the we talk a lot with students about it's got to be good on both sides, right? It's got to be a good fit for the university, and feel like we're getting a contributing member of society, be proud of being there, is going to be interested in the opportunities we're offering. But the student has to also feel like it offers their major opportunities for career readiness. All those things we talked about have to be in place on both sides.
Well, we appreciate that, Michael. And this has truly been a tremendous conversation. And we're getting close, unfortunately, to the end of it. I always like to ask before the last question, is there a question that I didn't ask that you wish I had, or a topic that simply didn't come up that you'd like to share with our listeners now?
Not necessarily a question. I think, one of the things I would say about LIU that we didn't talk about was just that focus on experiential learning. And that's something we take a lot of pride in. And I sort of alluded to a few of the opportunities. But we believe and we know we have amazing faculty that are leaders in their field, whether currently or previous, and that are well connected in industry. But that connection to industry and those experiential learning opportunities is very much embedded. We also know that a great education is not just in the classroom, but it's also hands-on, building that resume, making sure when you graduate that you've already done it in some ways. So I talked about our student-run businesses. We have multiple of them on campus where students are, learning by doing. They're CEOs and CFOs, like I said. They're looking at profit loss statements. They're buying stuff for the stores and determining what, how the store is formatted. But we also have an investment fund where students are investing real money. We have a consulting where they're consulting for Fortune 500 companies across the world. Things like that. Artificial intelligence, some of the best laboratories and spaces that are in partnership with industry experts. So we really value a great classroom experience, but also leveraging corporate and industry partners to make sure students are having great experiences off campus, but they're also able to get internships and then eventually a job off campus after graduation. So just want to talk a little about that. So I think it's a really important part. It's very much where higher education has been going, but will be a really important part in the sort of this evolution of AI and making sure you're competitive in your job and all this sort of stuff. Really important that students are getting that experience outside the classroom.
Well, we appreciate that. And like we said earlier, yes, college costs a lot of money, but you are very big on the experiential learning and again, creating those pathways. So you're not only graduating students, but you're really helping them with their careers, which is,
Yep.
for so many students, the whole point of going to college. So again, Michael, I can't thank you enough. Unfortunately, it does bring us to the last question, which is, what are your top 3 pieces of advice? And you've given so many, but what are your top 3 for students and families going through the college admissions process?
So I think it's a lot of some of the things I've already talked about as far as top threes. So I would say, try to avoid getting into that process, that competition with peers. Find your home at a university where you feel your support will be, you'll be best supported for your success. That may be an Ivy or top 50, but it may not be. It might be a great university around the corner that's doing some great things. I think that's number one. Also talked about it before, but I think parents and students should talk to each other first about, what the student is looking for, and as far as majors they're really considering, but also parents, where are they nervous and seeing their child misstep? Like that conversation is really important to get ultimately to the right institution and make the best of college. Also helps the student start on the right foot when they get to college. And then I would say utilize the strengths of what has come before college, and know yourself, but at the same time, be ready and open to new opportunities and to reinvent yourself. And I think if you talk to most people throughout their lives, not just the transition to high school to college, but they've sort of reinvented themselves and expanded themselves multiple times during their lives. And I think that admissions process and thinking about the next step, it's such a pivotal time. So I would use that opportunity to know who you are and know what you're good at, but at the same time think big and think about expanding what you've done and what you're capable of.
Such great advice. Michael, I cannot thank you enough for being here today. I'm so happy as I know this is going to help so many students and their families as they navigate the process. Looking forward to having you again in the future. Thank you so much, Mike.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. And to everyone out there, good luck with the college search. Take care all and best wishes. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the CAP, the College Admissions Process Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please don't forget to tell a friend and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am your host, John Durante, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the CAP. Thank you for listening to the College Admissions Process Podcast presented by Prep Expert. Prep Expert offers live online SAT and ACT courses with the best score guarantees, instructors, and curriculum. Go to prepexpert.com to guarantee your child's success.